Hey guys, this one's going to be real fast this week, but Numbers 22 is a story that just makes me smile. And I am so excited that it's one that we get to teach this week. Before we really dive into it, let me just remind everybody that hopefully your test is done by now. You've given all of your students the assessment. You've got it marked in WISE 2. If you don't know how to do that, please look at last week's video. Your attendance should be up to date. Remember, we're getting close to the end. Students should know what the due date is for all their late work, and that those dates are coming up. Remember, those are going to be hard close dates, and so in those, because we've just got to close on those dates so we can get graduation certificates and everything to you in time. And so, anyway, that's just kind of a reminder. But could we just dive in for just a little bit into Numbers 22? Numbers 22, I've always thought was just fun because it's the talking donkey story, right? And I don't mean to offend. I don't want to offend anybody today, but today I'm just going to say ass because it's in the scriptures and it makes sense with the way that I'm going to look at this story. And I tell that to my students on this day. I say, look, as we're reading this, it's going to say ass a lot. If you want to say donkey, that's totally fine. If you want to say ass, that's fine too. But I'm going to say ass, and you'll see why at the end. And anyway, in the manual, well, first in Come Follow Me, I was kind of disappointed because they focus on the beginning part of the story, but they don't even really get to the talking ass part of it. I mean, obviously, if you're reading Numbers 22, like you should be doing with Come Follow Me, and but they didn't really do anything about that. And I was like, man, they missed one of my favorites. That's why I didn't write it. Anyway, and then I looked in the lesson manual, and again, the lesson manual does a pretty good job at looking at the beginning part of this story, where Balaam is persuaded. Balak tries to get him to curse the Israelites, and he says, "Let me ask God," and God says, "Don't do it." And you can read the story. You can see that he goes when he knows that he shouldn't, right? He knows that the Lord has told him, "Hey, don't go do this," but he does anyway. The money's too good for him, right? He's following the money. And as he does that, he has this wonderful experience. I say wonderful experience, but it's one that I get excited for. So here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to teach that first little part so they understand that Balaam should not be traveling right now to curse the Israelites. God has told him, do not do this. But he does anyway. And honestly, there is a really weird verse in there where it almost comes like if God's like, yeah, if you want to go, right? But it is pretty obvious in the previous verses where he's like, don't go do it. And I wonder if the Lord's just like, look, you've got your agency, right? If you want to go, but I don't want you to. But as we start in verse 22, and God's anger was kindled because he went. And so you can see right there that he doesn't want him to go, but he's going. And the angel of the Lord stood in the way for an adversary against him. Now he was riding upon his ass, and his two servants were with him. So we have Balaam on his ass. He's got two servants. And in the next verse, the angel of the Lord is standing in the pathway. And as the ass is walking, the ass can see the angel, and the angel has a sword drawn. And the ass rightly sees that if I keep on going straight, Balaam is going to die. And so he turns off of the path and he goes into a field. You see that in verse 23. And Balaam's pretty mad at the ass that he does this. You see right there that Balaam smote the ass and turned her into the way. And so, he's thinking stubborn little ass. And so, to smote is to hit. And so he probably beats up the ass a few times and gets her back in the path. And then he starts traveling again. And in the next time, the angel of the Lord again appears, waits a little bit down the path and appears again. And as the ass sees the angel, there's really no way to turn right or left. And in my mind, and this is just how I see it, it says in verse 25, this is again Numbers 22:25, and when the ass saw the angel of the Lord, she thrust herself unto the wall and crushed Balaam's foot against the wall. And so I imagine that he sees the angel there, and he's like trying to scoot around the angel, and in doing so crushes Balaam's foot against the wall. And again, Balaam has the same response as he's had in the past. He beats up the ass for what he's done. And then the angel goes a little bit further. And the third time, when the angel appears, there's no way for the ass to go. She can't go right or left. You have to go straight or stop. And so she stops, and she just kind of sits down. And Balaam has had it at this point, right? He's like, how dare you? And so he gets off, and you see in verse 27, Balaam's anger was kindled, and he smote the ass with a staff. So he's just got this stick, and he's just beating this ass. Just, how dare you? How dare you disobey me? How dare you not do what I want you to do? How dare you stop? How dare, whatever he's thinking. And then the fun part of the story happens, right? And the angel of the Lord, or the Lord, opens up the ass's mouth. And so the ass is able to speak. And in verse 28, the ass says, what have I done unto thee that thou hast smitten me these 3 times? So this is crazy, right? He's sitting there, he's like beating this ass. And suddenly the ass says, why are you beating me up? Now, if I ever heard any sort of animal talk to me, especially after I hit it and it said, why did you hit me? I think the next word out of my mouth is, I'm sorry. Right? And then the next one is like, you speak? Like, but Balaam doesn't miss a beat. It's almost like asses talking to him is a common occurrence, because he just fires right back. And Balaam said unto the ass, because thou hast mocked me, I would there were a sword in my hand, for now I would kill thee. I'm so mad at you that I'd kill you right now if I had the chance. Right? If there was a sword instead of a staff, you'd be dead. And then my favorite line from the ass. And the ass says unto Balaam, am I not thine ass, upon which thou hast ridden ever since I was thine unto this day? Was I ever wont to do so unto thee? I don't know why I love that line so much, but he's like, look, am I not your ass? I think in 2022 language, what he's saying is, Balaam, I'm on your side. I've always been on your side. I've been on your side since the day that I was your animal, right? I've always served you. I've always looked out for you. Isn't that right, Balaam? Has there ever been a time when I've done something like this before? And you see Balaam's response right there at the end of verse 30. And he said, nay. Like, no, you've never done this to me before. And then Balaam's vision is opened. And in verse 31, the angel of the Lord opened up the eyes of Balaam. And he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way, and his sword drawn in his hand. And he bowed his head, and he fell flat on his face. So Balaam's vision is opened, his eyes are opened, and he sees the angel standing there with a sword, and Balaam falls down on his face. And then, a little guilty pleasure of mine, verse 32, and the angel of the Lord said unto him, wherefore hast thou smitten thine ass these 3 times? Why did you just beat up your ass these 3 times? And then again, he says, behold, I went out to withstand thee, because thy way is perverse before me. I think in 2022 language, the angel said, Balaam, that ass just saved yours. Right? And again, that's pretty, right? Yeah, you got to know your class if you're going to say something like that. But then in verse 33, and the ass saw me and turned from me these 3 times. Unless she had turned from me, surely now also I had slain thee and saved her alive. I think right there is actually where he's saying, hey, Balaam, that ass just saved yours. And Balaam realizes what happens, and he changes, and he goes, and he'll bless the Israelites instead of cursing them. It's kind of a weird story. It's one that the kids will love, but it's not just supposed to be a story about a talking donkey. There's got to be some application here. And the application is not the next time you're hitting an ass and it talks to you, this is what you should say. That's not it. But I think what I will do is I will maybe have some things written on the board, just some elements of the story. Balaam's doing something that he shouldn't. The ass tries to save him. He gets mad. The ass sees danger on the path that Balaam's on and tries to stop him. Balaam again gets mad. And maybe I'll just ask the class, guys, who are the asses in your life? Who are those people that see danger further down the path that you might be on and try to stop you from walking into destruction? Who are your asses? And honestly, it's quite fun to hear some of the, just to see the students, just that it clicks, that they have asses in their life, and gratefully so, right? When you'll get people like, man, my parents have been an ass before. I'm like, tell me about it. How have your parents saved you from walking a path that you shouldn't have been on? They'll mention young men and young women leaders. They might mention bishops or friends, and tell me how has that person protected you? How have they helped you? How have they kept you from going down a path that leads to destruction? I'm guessing that all of you teachers have asses in your life. Well, maybe you could share a story when you were younger, when you were a teenager, and when did you have somebody that said, you're not on the right path. What you're doing is going to lead to some pretty painful experiences. And did you beat up the person for saying it? Right? So many times we get so mad at those people that stand in our way. We've got a very natural reaction like Balaam, right? That we're going down this path and we don't see the danger. And when somebody comes in our way and says, hey, you got to stop. And when we kind of have that friction, we get so mad at the person, right? That we want to beat them. I can't believe you're doing this. Why aren't you my friend? Why don't you, just like Balaam's doing. And again, we're upset at the person that has just been sent by God to help us and keep us safe. Anyway, it is a wonderful story. It is a fun story. It's a fun conversation that you can have when you can actually ask your students, hey, when was the last time you thanked the person for being an ass in your life? I remember a few years ago as I was teaching this, and I had known that one of my students was kind of struggling with his parents who were an ass to him. And in a good way, right? You know what I'm saying there. And I just said in the class, I said, you know what? The next time you get mad at your parents, and I was just saying this to everybody, right? But really kind of focusing on this one individual. And I said, and perhaps you get so mad at what they do that you might actually call them an ass. If that ever comes out of your mouth, I hope you remember Balaam and that his ass was sent by God, but that our asses, right, are sent to help and protect us. And gratefully, we have parents that they know they're going to take some flack from us. They might get treated poorly by us because they're trying to stop us from doing what's wrong. But we should be grateful for that. Anyway, it's a fun one. I hope to have a lot of fun when I get to teach it. I hope if you choose to do it that way that you can. But if you do teach the story of Balaam like that, I hope you'll make that connection. That again, the lesson manual's got some good connections of, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, there's consequences. That's true. But I think this is a really relevant way where they can realize that they've got some people that care about them and that they are trying to help them stay on the path and stay away from danger. And it's a fun conversation. And again, your students best. And so maybe just send a quick email if you feel like it's appropriate or if it's needed. You say, hey, parents, today we're going to be in Numbers 22. It's about Balaam and his talking ass. Here's what we're going to be talking about. And just let them know that you're going to be saying ass. And I had to do that because one year as I was teaching this up in Utah as a release time setting, I had a class leave and my principal didn't know what I was teaching. And some people walked in front of his office and they go, you know what, Brother Nixon's a real ass. And they're like, yeah, he is, right? And the principal heard that and he went right out and he's like, you two, come here. What did you just say about Brother Nixon? And they're like, that he's an ass? And anyway, he kind of got upset with them because he didn't know what they were saying. And so he kind of told me, he's like, I think you've got two students that don't really like you. And I said, why? What'd they say? And he said, they called you an ass today. And I just smiled. I was like, I'm so glad that they think I'm an ass. And he's like, what are you teaching in your class? And I'm like, Balaam. And I showed him the connection, and he goes, I love that, but you might want to maybe send your parents an email, and let them know. So your classes, your parents, and so if that's appropriate too. And so I did. I sent it off to the parents, and I said, parents, here's what I taught. Here's how I did it. And I got so many responses back. They're like, I love this. This is great. And so anyway, that might make things a little bit easier if you want to. But anyway, there's a lesson idea that is a fun one. Students will laugh. They'll see the connection. They'll see that it's relevant. And hopefully when they leave your classroom, they'll be grateful for those people in their life. Now, we've talked about this a lot, but that's good. But then can you connect it to the Savior? And that will be even better. If they leave just thinking, okay, my parents are like that, they stand in my way and they keep me, from danger, that's good. But if you can then take it and connect it to the Savior, there'll be some real power in your class. Now, how you do that, I'm going to leave that up to you. Right? How will you bring in the Savior? Is he the one that sends those people? Are they pointing their students or their children towards him? However you want to do that. But make sure that you don't teach a class, a whole lesson, without trying to connect it back to the Savior. Otherwise, we've missed we've missed an opportunity, right? So you guys have a wonderful week. We'll talk to you later. Okay, bye.